Hi, welcome to episode 3 of On the Move with Kontota. I'm Dillyn.
I'm Sydney. Welcome back, y'all.
Today is going to be a bit more casual topic. We wanted to talk about COVID puppies and the whole situation basically during the pandemic, like the shutdown. A lot of people started working from home, and a lot of those people got puppies, and then those puppies grew up with their owners at home all day, so they never really had to learn how to be alone or by themselves. And then that kind of ended up resulting in a lot of adult dogs with anxiety. So we're going to talk about just
the COVID
that.
puppy. The COVID puppy pandemic.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, like you had said, they had all this free time and they thought it was a great time to get a puppy, but they didn't think what happened, and a lot of us didn't, what happens after this? We're all working from home, it's wonderful, we're gonna keep doing this forever. And no one in society really planned for coming back to the office. So a lot of people were then left with this, hey, everyone come back to the office. And you're like, wait a minute, my whole life at home's really chill. I take the kids to work, I'm home with my dog, I get to do this. So not only was it a massive change for everyone in their own households, just with what their routines were, but then it became this massive change for their dogs as well.
Right.
And when your dogs grew up with a household with everyone being used to being home, and maybe not in the most structured environment where they do have super set times, like when kids were going to school, they have these set times, these set structures. When you go to work, you have your set structures, your set routines, and when you get a dog in that environment, you bring them up with that routine.
Right.
Now those dogs that got used to not really having much of a routine, so they're struggling with anxiety. And I myself have a dog with anxiety. He is on Prozac to help manage his behaviors. So this is something that happened just across the board with dogs. And my own dog was a rescue who came to me when he was older, but he's one of those dogs that got affected by the COVID puppy pandemic.
Yeah.
And how that all popped up. And he's learning to live his life where he's not thinking, oh my God, I'm gone forever. Because dogs, much like babies, they don't have what's called object permanence. So if it's gone and it's out of sight, if that ball rolls under the couch, it's gone forever until that baby grows up and learns, oh no, it's not gone forever, it's just under the couch.
Yeah.
Dogs don't have that. So until they learn, no, it's okay, they're going to come back, they think you're gone forever every single time you leave. And they went from these small increments of you being gone, maybe when you went to the grocery store to pick up and you were gone for an hour, to being gone for these 8, 9, 10 hour days, because by the time you're done commuting, you are gone for 9 to 10 hours a day. And that's a hard transition to make.
So that's why crate training is important. And so that wasn't a thing during the pandemic. Like people who started working from home, like there was no need for them to get their dog used to being in a crate or get their dog used to being home alone. They didn't have the opportunity to even identify those destructive behaviors or work through it.
Because they didn't even present themselves until that whole brand new, hey, return to the office, showed right back up.
And the dog's entire life is completely different.
It
Dogs,
just flipped upside down.
You said they thrive off of routines. When you get a dog, it's important to socialize it, and you can take it places. Like I know some stores will let dogs in and you can have them meet new people, but obviously during the pandemic that wasn't really happening. The dog literally grows up like the first few, like 3 years of its life almost, just knowing its family.
Quite sheltered. After it left wherever it was before you had it, whether it was the shelter or the breeder, its world got smaller. You think that its world is getting bigger, but it is getting smaller because you got stuck in the house during the pandemic, and its world became the yard or just the walks you would go on. It wasn't this much larger world where everyone now wants that dog. They can take on hikes, they can take to the patio, out to the bar to go and have dinner with their friends. They want that dog, but they didn't do that with the dog growing up. And now you're expecting this dog to be so used to a lot of commotion that it was never introduced to at a really young age. And it's hard to teach that dog to get accustomed to that and be okay with it and be used to it when it really went from this crazy big world to our very small little house, and its whole world is confined to our little house.
And that's all it knows. Also, like the whole COVID puppy thing, after the pandemic, when people started going back to the office, that ended up with us seeing a big uptick in the amount of dogs being surrendered. And so shelters were already struggling before, but after the pandemic, like it's insane. Like every single shelter I know in this area, they're overflowing. Like they will not accept dogs.
And it's difficult to be in the rescue world and to be in any animal space right now because it's the unfortunate reality of what did happen.
Right.
Is that people really thought they would have all the time for these pets, and they did. And I don't want to knock anyone who really did think they were going to have all the time in the world. But
it's not about shaming anyone.
But then reality hit when everyone said, hey, back to the office. Right. And not only that, but a lot of people, when they went back to the office, we actually increased our expenses when we went back to the office, because you went back to the office and then you had to pay for your commute to get there. So your gas prices, and then you spent time out of the house and you were losing money. So not only that, but financially it became harder for people to keep animals when they went to the office.
Inflation.
The economy is a whole other reason as to why animals are hard to keep. But yeah, it absolutely plays a part in all of this, and the entire COVID pandemic just made the animal world an even more expensive luxury than it already was to begin with.
Yeah. And so for existing pet owners, like, you're already having to spend more on costs related to owning a pet. But for people who just got maybe their first dog during the pandemic, I don't think anyone really was thinking long term what it would be like if you had to go back to the office. Especially now, like, I think now there is a lot more of a push for employees to go back into the office. So it's continuing to happen. You have to do what's best for you, and at the end of the day, what's best for the dog. Sometimes that means having to surrender your dog.
And that's exactly how I ended up with my dog.
People surrender dogs all the time. It's not a new thing. It's just that after the pandemic, because of the circumstances, it became so much more common.
And that's how I ended up with my dog. My dog came to me because his owners could no longer care for him after the pandemic. Life happened, so now he's my dog, and he also has anxiety as a direct result of the pandemic and not being exposed to the world.
Yeah.
He was home with people for most of his life, and then he came to me. And now I work not from home. My husband does not work from home. I do have a dog walker that comes in midday because we do work long hours. Yeah. So it's hard for them to go 12 hours without seeing a person, and that's the reality, is that my job is a 12-hour long day. My husband's job is a 12-hour long day. So we're not home for 12 to 14 hours each during the day, where my animals are home alone. So we actually have a dog walker to help get them out and keep their routines. They do get to go out, they do get to potty, and they do have that midday break. Because in my head, I wouldn't want to go 12 hours without having some kind of break. So they get their little midday break, and that's one of the ways that we've learned to deal with the going back to the office, because he was lucky to also work from home, and I never had a job where I worked from home,
but
unfortunately.
Again, like you mentioned, there's extra costs associated with that, right?
Oh,
so like people
financially, it just kept going up.
Yeah, like especially if you want to, it depends on how long you're away from home, right? But generally the older a dog is, the longer they can go.
The general rule of thumb is their age +1 is how many hours they can go. So if they are 3 months old, they can go for 3 hours plus an hour, so about 4 hours. And then once you get into an adult, you don't want to let them go for longer than about 4 or 5 hours. Because how long do you go without your potty break?
For real.
Give them a potty break too.
For real. But that's the thing, is like now, and people, they've hired dog walkers and stuff, but that has always been seen as more of a luxury. But now it's just like a necessity. I think it's become more, society, I think, is changing to like value pets more.
Absolutely.
Like I was saying, society's kind of changing to where I think people, let's say 50 years ago, maybe if you had a dog, it was like you'd feed it table scraps, or it just runs around your house all day.
The number of back in my day stories that I could tell you about, and I have plenty of my own. My grandparents grew up with their dog Frisky, and they never really fed him kibble. The stories that I have around Frisky are like, Frisky was just outside and they fed the dog table scraps. Frisky ran around and barked, and that's what Frisky did.
And now dogs are seen much more as like a part of the family, and especially like younger couples who aren't having kids.
It is now their baby. Yeah. Any person who gets a dog in their 20s, that is their child. Talk to them about it. They will convince you that they birthed the dog themselves.
So the expectation, though, is that you're going to spend more on that dog, and the standard of taking care of a dog is much higher now. So it's a little more difficult. It has absolutely
gone up. Yeah. And the thing is that it doesn't even have to be this level of crazy overindulgence almost. I personally call it cutesy culture, because to me that's what it is. There's a lot of these really cutesy videos of these little puppies with these clothes and these designer decor little it is doggy influencers, and they have a pen with the matching clothes and the hangers and the lamp and like the mini TV. And first of all, I look at that as a dog person. I'm like, my goodness, my anxious dog would destroy half of that and he would end up eating it. That would be gone. So there is this level of really cutesy culture that really purports that really expensive, spend all your money on your dogs and treating them like this baby, but it doesn't actually have to be that way either. Like a lot of people like me, my dogs are not on cute culture. They have matchy collars, but that's where it goes.
Yeah.
They have their colors, but that's their life. They have
you're not spending unnecessary amounts of money.
Yeah, and there's a level of financial security that if that's for you and you have that and you can, good for you. I love that for you, and I love that's your flavor of cutesy culture. Good for you. But for most people, logistically, financially, we have our dogs, they have their basic collar, they have their leash, they're cared for, and they don't need all of that. That cutesy culture does make it seem exponentially more expensive, even though it doesn't have to be.
So there is ways, you can definitely have a dog. You don't have to spend exorbitant amounts of money, but there is extra cost associated with that. And I also want to mention, if you are somebody who's struggling to take care of the expenses related to owning a pet, there are like programs and assistance for you. Most shelters will have like food assistance programs for dogs, like
shelters do.
Vets, there's like low cost veterinary
vets
clinics.
do, and if you look into certain pet stores, I know a lot of feed stores, so like livestock stores, especially here in Texas because we're local to Texas. Feed stores feed stores in Texas also will quite commonly host vaccination weekends, and those are really often just low cost, and it's their core vaccinations, so they'll get the major ones that they need, and they'll get the rabies one, which is required by all states. So, but it's nice to know about these things because my regular annual vaccinations at my regular vet is $250 a dog.
Yeah.
Low cost clinics are all around. You can go and get your core vaccines for well under $100.
Yeah.
But overall, dog food on the shelves is meant for dogs. They are generally backed by science, especially if you look at the big name brands, and you can look into the WSAVA guidelines and see how the different brands fall into that. And those are guidelines, but food does not have to be these super expensive boutique things.
Right. If it's a matter of being able to keep your dog or having to
oh my goodness,
surrender your dog or something, like I'm telling you, if you go to your shelter and try to surrender your dog, if you didn't adopt your dog from that shelter, they likely are going to turn you away because there's no space. There's just no space.
I recently went through this with a friend of mine. She went through a major life event and couldn't keep her animals, and I was helping her rehome them. And even locally, there was nowhere. We were rehoming them locally within about 100 shelters. I ended up fostering them through a shelter system to be able to place them, but it was extensive and it was difficult, and these were dogs that she could no longer care for due to the major life event.
And it takes, I think now post the whole pandemic shutdown, I think it's taken a lot longer to rehome a dog or surrender a dog than it used to. So if you're planning on moving or something, or if you're going through something and you can't take care of your dog, I would plan for it can take like upwards of a year sometimes. I was gonna actually say, if you can talk about, I know you said that you took in a dog from some people who couldn't take care of him anymore. And you said he has a lot of anxiety. Can you talk about like what was the process like when you first adopted him? How did he do? How is he doing now?
Dave was given to me. He was unable to be cared for by his owners anymore, so he came to me. Yeah, his new couch is my couch, actually. No regrets, Dave is wonderful, but he did come to me with a lot of anxiety. He is a dog that if left unattended for any period of time, he will destroy your house, your home, and anything you love, including all food in it. He will eat you out of house, home, and sheetrock, literally. So he is in what we lovingly refer to as his jail cell. It is a crate. All my dogs are crated at home. It is for their safety for multiple reasons. I'm a former firefighter, so for me, it is far easier for me to be able to say to the firefighters, hey, my dogs are in crates. They're on the first floor. Follow the left-hand wall. You'll find them. And tell them to pull their crates out of the house than it is for them to go and find an animal that's hiding under a bed or in a closet or somewhere.
Just having them crated, it's safer for the emergency responders in that situation. They don't have to worry about the dog attacking them or
that's
something.
Why I do it, because firefighters can just go in, they can grab those crates, and they can drag the crates out of the house and bring my whole dog out safe, sound, and actually in a containment system that my dog's accustomed to being in. And it keeps my dog safe, and it keeps them safe. But for Dave, his crate is actually a little bit more reinforced because he'll break out. He'll break out of your traditional wired crate.
He just busts out of there.
And that's dangerous for him. So not only is it dangerous for the crate because he'll destroy crates and I'm buying more and more crates.
And then your house.
The house too, because he'll destroy things in the house and he could eat something he couldn't. So that goes from anything like blankets and pillows, where he could end up with an obstruction surgery from eating something absolutely undigestible, or he's gonna end up injuring himself eating food he shouldn't eat. I've got chocolates in a top shelf in my cabinet. Dogs can't have that. It will result in him having a really upset stomach. Yeah. So that would be poisonous to him, and I don't want that to happen. So again, to keep him safe, he's in a crate. He's in a reinforced crate that he cannot open and he cannot break out of. And after really seeing his anxiety in action and how much he screamed and cried throughout the day, it was incessant. He was one of those dogs that from the second I left my house, he was screaming.
Your neighbors are like...
Yes, my neighbors complained. There was a lot that I worked on with him, getting him into a routine. And there's a rule that we call the rule of threes with dogs. So you want to give them 3 days when you first bring that dog home to start understanding your routine and come out of their shell more. So 3 days to kind of learn who you are and get acquainted with the new scenario and the new situation. 3 weeks to really fully learn your routine and understand. And then 3 months to fully settle into it. So if you're noticing these behaviors with your dog really early on, a week into owning your dog where they seem really anxious and stressed, give them more time. Sometimes it's just, this is still new to them. Oh my gosh, I'm in this brand new scary place. If you've ever been somewhere new for the first time, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. Give your dog a minute. You just moved into a whole new house. What's happening? So they need that minute to settle. So after I had him for about 3 months now, and it had not stopped, I ended up putting cameras in on him to watch him throughout the day. Hours. He does not stop barking for hours on end. Even if I'm in the house, it's incessant until he was out of the crate. So it took a lot of management to get him to where we're at now, and it also took medication. My dog is on Prozac. Which I know everyone thinks is, oh my God, your dog's an antidepressant. But the reality is that dogs can also have chemical imbalances.
That are on anxiety meds.
Absolutely, and Prozac's not the only one, it's just the one that I happen to use with my dog. A lot of people also use CBD because it's just available at pet stores pretty widely and easy, and that works amazing for some dogs, especially if your dog only has, say, certain triggers. Like if it's thunderstorms where your dog gets anxious about. Unfortunately, my dog's anxiety is constant, routine, and all the time. So unfortunately, it's a whole lifestyle for him.
Yeah.
He had to relearn. And now with medication, I've had him for about 1.5 years now. He's come so far. It actually is now at the point on occasion where I'm like, I might consider tapering you off of your medication because he's no longer incessantly barking. He no longer tries to break out of his crate. And this is why he was in a jail cell. He only tries to break out of his crate if you're standing there and you're watching him. His biggest points of anxiety now are if you're in the house and he knows you're there. So if I'm sitting on the couch watching TV and he's eating dinner in his crate and he sees me and he's done eating dinner, he has to let me know he's done eating because it's time for him to be released from his jail cell.
Yeah.
Which, okay, but we're still working on that level of anxiety because if he's in there and you're there or any person is there, he doesn't like it. He has, I call it FOMO. He does. He's got severe FOMO. He wants to be with you all the time. What are you doing?
Yeah.
He's the dog if you're taking a shower.
It's like
he's
a Velcro dog.
Absolutely a Velcro dog. He is a herding breed mutt. So he also has very
super high
much
energy.
The go-go. He absolutely has that that high drive mindset of what's the next thing can I do? So managing that for him has become learning his behaviors and what triggers him and knowing that he's always what's next. I'm able to now teach him what's next. What's next is before you even come out of your crate is you have to sit. And now we're at the point where he actually knows this and he knows the routine that he actually sits and waits in his crate with the door wide open until I'm done putting his food bowl up.
Oh.
And he patiently waits for me to release him, and he's getting so much better about that, but it does take a lot to get to this point. It did take a lot of routine and lifestyle management because before I got him, I already had my other 2 dogs, and they had their routine.
Yeah.
So now I had to change that routine with the introduction of a 3rd dog who also needed his own special attention.
Yeah.
Especially when your dog has new problematic behaviors that require such a high level of management, like my dog Dave's do.
And I can't imagine the kind of dog that Dave is. I can't imagine somebody who's never owned a dog before getting that dog. That they would probably end up wanting to surrender him or rehome him, and just because it could be a lot to deal with.
It absolutely is, and that's exactly what happens a lot of times with dogs, is people do get shelter dogs and they don't fully understand the dog's behavior yet.
And it's hard to.
They're over their heads, and it is. Putting a dog in a shelter. I recommend to people all the time that if you're looking to adopt a dog, talk to the shelter about fostering to adopt first. That way you can really work with the shelter and find the right dog that fits into your household already. You already have an established lifestyle. the dog is going to have its own personality. And you want to find the right dog that's going to fit with that lifestyle and that personality. And if you're going through the shelter, you're absolutely going to want to work with a fostering program, because that likely is going to be your best way to find that perfect dog that fits right into your lifestyle with the easiest change for you and the dog. It's not ever going to be a perfect, smooth transition, especially if you've never had a dog and you're going to your first.
Yeah, there's always unknowns.
But it's much easier and better to work with a support system like a rescue, or if you're going the breeder route.
Yeah, rescues are really good. I want to talk about rescues a little bit, just because there is a lot of breed-specific rescues.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
So they will be able to place you, you'll be able to go to the rescue and be like, this is my lifestyle, this is my home setup. And they'll be able to place you like with a dog that they think is the best fit.
Yes.
And they won't let you permanently adopt that dog unless it actually works out.
It's usually a trial period.
They're more
I like to call them
choosy.
high-end rescues, because they are so specific in who they work with and how they work with you and the way that they find the right dog for you. It's usually a really big questionnaire, because these rescues always want to make sure that this dog ends up in the right place. Right. Because a lot of breeds that are breed specific, they're focused on that breed not falling into the wrong hands, and by that, not being abused, falling into negative environments. They want to make sure that these dogs are always safe. So they are really thorough in what they're looking for from their adopters. They want to make sure that you already know, and if you don't already know what you're getting into with this breed, that you're going to be open to education.
Right.
Because there's many breeds out there, especially if we look at Belgian Malinois. These guys came up and they popped up with the hype of the movies that came out, the War Dog movies, and a lot of people are getting them now.
But they're insane. Personally, I could never own one of those dogs.
I tell people all the time, do not get a Belgian
Therefore,
Malinois. If you value your free time,
for real, I think.
They are, and they're great dogs if you know what you're getting into. But again, they're a dog that does require your lifestyle to be about the dog. They're not typically going to be your weekend warrior dogs.
Yeah.
My smooth collie, she's my weekend warrior dog. I can take her out on a hike one weekend and we could be couch potatoes the next. She does not care. And collies are very much like that though. They are very adaptable. They will go with you. They'll do this. They'll go on a 5-mile hike with you, but then lay in bed for 12 hours the next.
Interesting.
They're like that. But that's their personalities, and that's what I knew I was getting into. My Siberian Husky, if I don't wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go and take him on his daily morning run, he is going to wake me up to ensure that I wake up to take him on his daily morning run.
Yeah.
And again, I got that dog at a time where I was big into running. Still am. Not by choice. Love that dog to death, but I would not be into running if it wasn't for him anymore.
He's the only thing keeping you running now.
He is. But again, that was a lifestyle choice that I made when I got my dog. And it is a lifestyle choice that I am keeping up with him for the rest of his life.
He's really cute. So.
He's the best, and I love him. But again, these are two totally different dogs. One needs his daily run, and by his breed standard, and what you know about Siberian Huskies, you would go, yeah, of course he needs that. He's a Siberian Husky. Yeah. The same way that my smooth collie, she's, okay, let's go on a hike today, and let's lay in bed all day today. Do whatever you want to do.
It just boils down to making sure that you do proper research before adopting a dog, even from the local shelter. And that's not to say that shelters don't want the best for their dogs. It's just usually they're so overrun, they can't really afford to turn away people who want to adopt a dog.
I don't even think it's inherently that. I think it's the shelter environment is so inherently stressful for dogs that it's difficult to get good reads on dogs to be able to place them in the right household. So it can be difficult to find out if dogs are good with kids until that dog's put in a household with kids.
And really all they have to go on is like
what the person was told before.
Which if it's a stray, they're not going to know anything about that dog.
And that's why I always tell people to work with rescues and work with their fostering programs and work with them that way, because they're going to know their dogs the best way. Yeah. They're going to know how to help you the best way that they can. But they're not the only option out there. There's so many other options. Working with breed-specific rescues, working with breeders even, to be able to find that right dog that's going to fit your lifestyle.
Yeah. There's no point in adopting a dog that you're just going to give back to the shelter.
I like to tell everyone, it doesn't matter where you adopt or shop from, because you're going to shop no matter what. You're going to shop for the dog that fits your lifestyle. Yeah. Whether you adopt that dog or you're getting it from a breeder.
If you really truly want a dog, just make sure that it's the right dog for you. You're not helping a dog that's in a shelter if you adopt it and then immediately surrender it back to the shelter. So that's something to keep in mind. Is a lot of people, they want to adopt a dog from a shelter, and that's a good thing, and that needs to happen. But I don't think that people who, there's like less expectation, I think. When you're like looking for a breeder or like a specific breed, I think people inherently do more research.
Because
versus
of the
if
background.
they're just, if they're just going to, they want to adopt a dog from a local shelter, they might not do as much research into the type of dog.
Especially because it's so hard with shelter dogs. You can't phenotype a dog at all. My dog Dave, he's a 45-pound black fluffy thing. He's adorable. I would have sworn up and down that he is just a border collie.
He does look like a black border collie. Like
he's a completely black dog with the tiniest bit of white on his chest. I would have sworn he's a border collie because he looks just like one. He's not got an ounce of border collie in him. He's got chow in him. He's got golden retriever. He has cattle dog in him. He's got American pit bull terrier in him. The chow threw me off though. That one really threw me for a loop. But not an ounce of border collie. So it's really difficult to phenotype dogs, and that's what shelters are doing when they label these dogs as lab mixes or whatever. They're just saying, oh yeah, you look like a lab, you're a lab mix.
Yeah, just visual.
And it's really hard to determine that dog's personality based off of that phenotype. So when shelters are looking at these dogs, they're phenotyping them based off of whether or not they look off like a lab, and just phenotyping them doesn't give you their personality, and that makes it incredibly difficult to find out what these dogs are really going to be like, and then placing them where they're going to really thrive and in a household that already fits what your lifestyle is and what that dog's lifestyle is going to what the dog's best lifestyle would be and what your lifestyle already is.
Because like you said, in the shelter, most of these shelters, each dog gets like a little pin. And a lot of dogs also, they won't even show their true personality until they've been adopted and they've been living with their family for like months or years. What advice would you give maybe to somebody who has a really anxious dog and is struggling to figure out how to work with them?
There are so many different avenues. I have a background in behavior modification. So for me, knowing how to train my dog was the biggest thing, knowing how to work with him. So finding the right trainer that's going to be able to work with you is absolutely the best thing that you can do to benefit not only your own life, because having a dog with anxiety is beyond stressful. I was constantly worried the first couple of months I had him that I set his crate up in the middle of the room. So he was not near any carpets, no towels, nothing that he could drag into his crate, no dog toys he could accidentally pull in there to eat, because I thought he was legitimately going to get something in his crate and eat it and end up with an obstruction surgery. It's stressful. So working with a training situation, being able to train that behavior and fix that routine, there's so many different trainers out there, but you definitely want to find someone that works in behavior modification and they specialize in separation anxiety. And it's also worth it looking into veterinary behaviorists. That's who I worked with. Dave specifically is a veterinary behaviorist. They specialize in using medicine as well as training to help modify your dog's behaviors.
So for those dogs who training's not enough, that's a good next step.
So Dave, it's training with medication. It's because training alone is not enough. Because for some dogs, that's all they need is they just need training. They just need structure, and you as the human just need support on how to build that structure for your dog. We're not born knowing how to do everything, so sometimes it is just about you learning. But other times, that dog does need more than what you as the human can do for them. The same way that humans might need more support too at times.
That's a good point too, is when people are looking in to get a dog, I think a lot of people don't factor in the training aspect. They don't think about how much training they're going to have to do, and it differs depending on the dog and the breed, obviously. And also, I think that people should, when they're creating their budget for how much they can afford to get a dog, I think they should factor in some professional training in there. Even if your dog doesn't necessarily need it, I think that it can be beneficial because the trainer can actually train you how to best train your dog that you can use for your dog's entire life.
Working in training for as long as I have, I don't actually train dogs when I'm training dogs. I train you to train your dog, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I do with my dogs at home. It's how you handle your dogs and how you interact with your dogs. And a lot of times in training, it's less about training the dog and it's more about training you how to interact with your dog in a way that your dog understands. Dogs don't speak English. And a lot of times we talk a lot to our dogs and we babble at them and they don't know what we're saying, but we think it's cute and we do it for us. But that doesn't benefit the dog. I can stand there talking to the dog, Dave, the entire time while he's barking his little head off going, why are you doing this? I'll be back in a few hours. It's fine, bro. Just chill out. And I can do this until I'm blue in the face. But it's never going to get the dog to understand that I leave and I come home from work every single day and it's the same routine.
Yeah.
What did get him to understand that routine was me walking in and out of the house 15 times in 15 seconds and then staying in the house. And then doing the same thing 10 minutes later, multiple times. And then staying out of the house for a couple seconds longer. And this was a routine that went on for months.
It takes a long time.
Months of daily training. And it's a lot and it's extensive, but that is what it comes down to, is that's what it took for me to have my dog be okay with me going to work and not stress him out. Because at the end of the day, my goal is to not stress him out. It realistically is okay for him to stay in his crate as long as he's not going to get to anything or anyone, and for him to bark his head off.
For him.
It's okay for him to stay in there and bark his little head off and be stressed. I don't like that he's stressed. I want to fix that for him. So for me, that took a lot of effort. And for not everyone is it going to be that easy to put in that level of effort, but it's much easier when you have a support like a trainer, like a veterinary behaviorist who can come in and tell you, hey, your dog does have a lot more anxiety than can be fixed with just training. Let's try this. And they're going to have more ideas. Because not for nothing, it's really hard to come up with other ideas when you are so hyper-focused and you can't necessarily see outside of yourself to see the problem.
And you're also stressed because your dog is stressed, and so it just makes it a difficult situation for anybody.
Absolutely. It's really hard to see outside of yourself, and it could be something super simple that you're doing to cause the problem.
Yeah.
One of the bigger things that I dealt with Dave at home is whenever you go to pick up his leash, he barks. It took, my husband was the biggest culprit with this, where he would just bark at my husband wouldn't stop, bark. We moved his leash to a new location, and it changed the whole picture for him. And then with time, we were able to bring it back to where I like the leash spot. Was it near the door or something? No, so the way my apartment is situated is there's like a straight hallway that goes straight to the back of it. And there's a utility closet that's right where the kitchen is towards the back. So it's actually halfway down in my apartment on a utility door, just hanging out in the open. But I had to actually move it from there, where my other two dogs' leashes also are, also my hoodie and my hat that I grab before I go outside. And I had to move his on top of the dog crates. So I'd actually leash up the other two dogs because he wasn't bothered when I grabbed the other two dogs' leashes. It was only his leash, where he goes, that's my leash. Oh my goodness. So I moved his leash. And then we changed his leash and we got him a new leash. And we reintroduced the new leash to the new spot. And he no longer has the anxiety where he would have to bark because we changed the picture. And sometimes it's that simple.
Right.
But you're not going to know that's the problem. It's really hard to see that, to just know, to see that the picture is just move the leash somewhere else.
You can't see it. It's really hard to see it from your dog's point of view because
having an outside perspective is so worth it to have. And it's one of those things that I cannot recommend it enough for anyone who's dealing with any level of dog behavior problems. If your dog is doing anything, or if you just want to train your dog just to learn, even just working with any trainer at any level will help you communicate better with your pet. Even YouTube trainers can sometimes be okay. Strong level of caution with YouTube trainers. However, sometimes you find really great gems in the rough there. You can find some phenomenal, wonderful trainers. Larry Crone is one of the ones that I follow on there. He's phenomenal. You can find good trainers on there, but not all of them are what they seem, and you might get some 12-year-old who likes dogs.
There's also affordable training options. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars on training.
A lot of the foundational skills that you need are taught in your very basic, everyday 101 class from your Anywhere Pet Store. Anywhere Pet Store 101 with dog training. Come see our trainer for our weekly beginner course on Sat. And this is not about training your dog to sit. It's just teaching you how to have that communication. And teaching you how your dog communicates. And that's what's most important there, is learning how they communicate and how to communicate effectively with them.
Yeah, that's all that we wanted to talk about today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe and tune in for the next podcast.
Thanks for coming to On the Move with Kontota.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.